What's up, guys? Welcome back to Among the Fence. Today we're going to be talking about the album Verminous by the Black Dahlia Murder. This album was a request from one of my subscribers, and if you guys have an album you want me to review, go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what it is, and I'll make it happen for you. And if you have requested an album, don't worry, I've seen it and it's on its way. The Black Dahlia Murder is a heavily influential melodic death metal band from Michigan. They started about 2001, and Verminous is their 9th studio album. And just as a disclaimer, Black Dahlia Murder is a lot of people's favorite bands, but they are not one of my favorite bands. I wasn't really into the whole melodic death metal scene thing back when they first came out, probably not until like 2009-ish, and by then I had already listened to a bunch of like newer bands, so by the time I started listening to Black Dahlia Murder, I just wasn't really feeling it. The production on Verminous is very tight, but it doesn't sound overly compressed or anything like that. You can still hear everything really well, especially with headphones on, and there's a lot of really technical songwriting and a lot of really good lyrics in this album. I noticed a lot of neat references to Jack the Ripper and vampires and werewolves, or wereworms, I guess. And the overall music in this album is very fast and very hard-hitting. There isn't a whole lot of slow moments in this album. It's got a little bit of thrash and just a little bit of like old school death metal sprinkled all throughout it. Like in the song Sunless Empire, which is maybe my favorite song. It's kind of hard to pick on this album because the songs that I did enjoy, I kind of liked them all the same. But Sunless Riff has this really heavy riff and drum pattern, and it's at a tempo where you just want to get up and start throwing your fists around. And I think of the mixture of the guitar solo and the lyrical content kind of reminds me of Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. And I can already see all the die-hard Black Dahlia Murder fans in the comments, but Aaron, Iron Maiden sucks and Black Dahlia Murder doesn't sound anything like them. Just relax, okay? I said it reminds me of Iron Maiden, not that it sounds like Iron Maiden or anything like that. Just listen to Number of the Beast and then listen to Sunless Empire, and maybe you might see a little connection there, but honestly, it just kind of had that like kind of folklore feel to it. And that's what this whole album kind of had for me. I actually enjoyed the lyrical content in this album quite a bit. It was probably like what I enjoyed the most. Even though the music on this album is pretty technical and complex, a lot of the riffage and the tremolo style picking and the drum patterns, it all kind of sounded the same, but not really a bad thing, because at the same time it was kind of fun. The first time I heard Child of Night, I was not impressed. It has a fairly solid riff at the intro and pretty savage drum pattern, but then as soon as the verse hits, it just becomes this dull, just boring riff and very basic drum pattern. And then the chorus, the lyrics in the chorus are so cheesy. Iya, iya. But after a few more listens, the song just kind of grew on me because it just became less serious and more fun, especially with the chorus. The whole song is just kind of really catchy. And the same thing happened with the song Removal of Oaken Stake. It just, the first 2 or 3 times I listened to it, I was not really impressed. But then after that, it grew on me, especially when I started to figure out what the lyrics were. It's just a fun song, and it's got good lyrics that tell a great story, which there's a lot of references to vampires, which is something I'm into. I'm currently reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King, so like, as I was listening to that song, I'm finishing up the book, and I'm like, oh, I love vampires. And I said it before, but the more and more I think about it, the dumber I feel, especially when talking about a melodic death metal album. I just really enjoyed the lyrics. The lyrics were a huge selling point to me on this album. So like, all the times I listened to it when it was a very superficial, just kind of music in the background listen, I didn't really get a whole lot out of it. But then as soon as I put on the headphones and I started to take notes and dissect the songs, that's when I was like, okay, this is not that bad. And the song, A Leather Apron Scorn, has a lot of Jack the Ripper references in it, which again, it's kind of like reading a Stephen King novel, but with a super sick bass line, fast riffs, and a really aggressive guitar solo. And the album closes out with the song Dawn of Rats, which to me is probably one of the best pieces of music you could ever have to finish an album. It's got tons of tremolo picking, super fast drum work, the choruses are pretty decent sounding, but again, the selling point were the lyrics. And not only that, but the overall like emotion and feel that was in this song. The whole album has a very dark and grotesque feel to it, but then when you get to Dawn of Rats, it feels a little bit more lighthearted and cheerful in atmosphere, But don't get me wrong, it's not like it isn't dark. It's just not quite as grave sounding. The only problem I have with Verminous, which I mentioned before, is that it all kind of just sounded the same to me. There wasn't a whole lot of different song structures going around. Every song starts out with a really sick riff and a really good drum pattern, but then when you get to the verses, it all kind of dies out and becomes dull, and there's either super fast chugs or tremolo picking in the verses. And then when you get to the chorus, whichever one they did in the verse, they do the opposite in the chorus or whatever. And then verse 2 comes around, and whatever happened in verse 1 usually happens again in verse 2, maybe just a slight change here or there, but nothing really that significantly different to really get you pumped more into the song. And then we get to the second chorus, which kind of the same again, and then a guitar solo, and then maybe an outro. Like, there's one outro on this album that's pretty heavy, which I enjoyed quite a bit, but I just wish that they would have done something different. On the song The Werewolf's Feast, it starts out with a guitar solo instead, but then it follows the same exact kind of pattern. And if you listen to like 2 or 3 songs on this album, you can pretty much predict how every single song is gonna go. I found the chorus to be kind of boring. It grew on me a little bit, but not like the other songs did. And it just, I couldn't really get into it. I wanted to, I enjoyed the lyrics, but the music just wasn't really there for me. Even the song Godlessly, which isn't really that bad, it was just kind of blah and felt really basic to me. But honestly, like, a lot of the songs that I didn't like on this album weren't really bad, but at the same time, all the songs that I did like weren't really all that great. Except for the opening track, which is the title track Verminous, and the 7th track on the album, How Very Dead. I did not really like those songs at all. I found Verminous to be very just bland and ho-hum, and How Very Dead was alright, but the vocals from, and I'm probably gonna say this wrong, Trevor Strnad, I found his vocals, especially like the deep growls, they just always come off really awkward to me, which is kind of weird because normally I don't care for the higher pitch vocals as much as the deep growls. But in this case, I actually prefer his higher vocals over his deep growls. So with all that said, I gotta give Verminous by Black Dahlia Murder a 6 out of 10. Like I said, the production is very tight and the music is very, very technical, but it just didn't have any like wow moments for me. And like I said earlier, I'm not really that big of a fan of Black Dahlia Murder. I've enjoyed their music a little bit here and there, but I've never been like really into them. But I will say that they are very consistent in sound. So if you enjoy any of their other albums, or you are a fan of Black Dahlia Murder, you will probably get a lot of enjoyment out of Verminous, and you'll probably end up hating me, which is fine. But I am curious to know what you guys think of this album, so go ahead and leave a comment below if you listen to Verminous, and let me know what you would rate it. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of my reviews, click the subscribe button and the little bell icon so you get notified so you don't miss out. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
I was trying to ignorant kid relying on my parents said to save me. Years gone by, returning home, running over every day. Said to convict me, 17 at the top of my